Hello and welcome back to the Last Life Ever podcast. My name is Jeffrey Holst and that's Jillian Sidoti over there. We switched sides today, Jillian.
We did switch sides. And you know what I find so charming about you, Jeff, is that you always welcome people back to the show as if they just binge watched.
They did just binge watch. They've just seen every episode up until this point because they discovered us 72 hours ago, and they're now in their 72nd hour of watching the show. Hey, but before we get too far off topic, who do we have on the show today, Jillian?
Today we have Becky Imhof, and she actually is I'm stuttering because I just can't even believe this. She was diagnosed with a brain tumor, 2 brain tumors in March of 2023, and she's getting through it. It's a life-changing experience, and she's able to experience this without suffering. And Lord knows I've never had 2 brain tumors, and I've suffered a lot through like minor inconveniences. So I really want to hear about this. She's also a personal trainer and a mental and emotional well-being coach. And she's been doing that since 2021. So obviously it's working because she's able to navigate this very scary time. So let's bring on Becky and talk to her about how to do this.
Help me, my brother, can you lend me a hand as I walk through this land of confusion? If we give to each other, then there's nothing to take. Let's live life for the moment before it slips away.
Hello, Becky. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, we're really excited to hear more about your story. In spite of Jillian stuttering and getting confused about what to say, it is actually true that we both find your story very inspiring, and so we're really excited to have you here. So,
well, I'll tell you what it was. I was reading the notes, and Becky had written me on Facebook, I believe, and we had chatted. But I did not realize how recently you were diagnosed. This was just a couple of months ago. So tell us what happened.
Yeah, so before I actually dive in, I just wanted to say I've not seen your video at the start before, and I was just reading it and it touched me. Every time, everything you were saying was like, oh, I really that resonates with me so powerfully before my experience, but especially now. Just be present, be you. Oh, it's just beautiful.
Thank you.
So obviously try and keep it as brief as possible and as kind of succinct as possible. In March 2023, actually the week before it happened, I was out to lunch with a friend, took me out for a belated birthday, and we had a discussion about death, of all things. She's scared of everything. I'm not really scared of that much. And I remember we had this conversation and I said in the conversation, I'm not scared of dying. And she said, oh, why? What do you mean? I said, well, I think when you die, and that's it. And then what a profound time to have that conversation, because I walked away from that conversation at lunch feeling a numbness in my finger, which then spread to a numbness in my hand and loss of sensation and strength through my whole arm throughout that week.
Wow.
I thought I'd done something, changed in my gym routine. Maybe it was something muscular. And I went to my osteopath, and he basically said, I don't know what's going on, but he ruled out a stroke because he thought it would be the whole arm. I'd have loss of sensation. And it was kind of in one part in particular. Anyway, I went to A&E over here in England and saw someone, and they said, look, we don't know what it is, but we don't think it's too much to worry about. Did a couple of very basic tests and just said, come back if there's anything more. And then I've got 2 teenage daughters. My oldest teenage daughter was away with my husband in Munich for a couple of nights. And the day that they came back, me and my youngest daughter had been having a sleepover in our downstairs bathroom, watching late night movies on the floor, just chilling. They came back, we said hello to them at 12 o'clock at night, they went up to bed. And in the middle of the night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, I thought, and hindsight is a wonderful thing, but I'm looking back now going, why did I think that? I started to feel something in my arm, and I thought, oh, maybe my muscles are waking up again. Maybe this is some kind of like indication that things are getting better. And my hand on my left-hand side, my hand started turning in and out as I was lying there. Then my arm, then my upper arm, and then my face was going up and down, and I was having a seizure.
Oh.
And I woke up my daughter, my poor daughter. I said, Jasmine, wake up. She woke up, she said, Mum is not well, you've got to phone me an ambulance. She obviously totally freaked at the age of 14, went, oh, I said, just go and get Daddy. Thank goodness he was here. Go and get Daddy. He phoned up the ambulance, and I said, I think I'm having a stroke. Obviously, looking back now, I know it's a seizure. I think I'm having a stroke. I need an ambulance. In England, 60 to 90 minutes waiting on a category 1. That's like top priority.
Are you serious? Wow.
They can't tell you a time. Even though you want reassurance, they can't tell you a time. So we had to make a decision. And at that point, I was lying there. My body's just convulsing in and out. And I just thought, I'm struggling to breathe. I was really struggling to breathe. And I just said, get me to hospital. And my daughter helped me as they were rushing around trying to get themselves ready. My daughter helped me to get pajama bottoms on, getting ready to go. And I just thought, I literally can't. I don't think I'm going to take another breath. I grabbed my daughter's leg and I just said, I love you. I'm going to do this without crying this time. I love you so much. I just need you to know I'm so proud of you, because I thought I was drawing my last breath.
Oh my God.
She, obviously, awful thing for her. She said, Mummy, don't. I said, I have to tell you. Anyway, I kept just focusing, take another breath. That's all I could do, just take another breath. They got me into the car, and my body's going from side to side. My daughter's holding me up. It took us 10 minutes to get into hospital, but on the way I thought, I'm losing it again. And I just said to my husband, keep watching me, because if I stop breathing, you're going to have to drag me out the car. And they will tell you how to do chest compressions. Phone 999, our emergency services. They got me to hospital, got me straight through, and immediately the team were on me, and they gave me something, either an epileptic drug or said something to calm me, and my breathing slowly started to come back, and I felt safe again.
Oh,
that
wow.
level, I felt like literally I'd gone
Were
to the
you
edge
like catatonic? Like, could you see but couldn't feel?
I could see, I could communicate, but I was in serious fear that I was going to lose my life. And I'm not a dramatic person. I'm not a worrier.
Yeah.
I literally felt like I went to the edge of life.
Wow.
Anyway, they calmed me, and everything's a little bit of a blur, but I just remember being lifted onto some kind of a scanner, CAT scan, MRI, something. And then the next thing I remember was the doctor saying to me, you have 2 brain tumours. And I can remember crying and them saying to me, do you want us to tell your family? And I said, yes, please tell them. And I vaguely remember them crying. And that bit of time is a bit of a blur for me, but that was my first major indication that something was wrong.
I don't know anything about brain tumors. I'm medically ignorant. Are all brain tumors cancerous, or is there opportunity for it to be benign?
So this involves me now jumping weeks forward in terms of my story.
Okay. So
I was told I have 2 brain tumors. I then had, and I'm missing out a load of my story here, but then 3 weeks later, I get admitted to under the care of a hospital in London, but I come home on medication in between being initially diagnosed. And then I get offered a pioneering treatment. It's only been used 3 times in the UK, where they can go right to the edge of the tumour in a very as minimally invasive as possible. And they're constantly monitoring to see what effect they're having on your body. Is that they have to weigh up the balance of trying to get as much of the tumour out as possible, between affecting your body, either ranging from partial loss of your hand and sensation to like being paralysed and stroke or death. So anyway, I was very lucky because they managed to do that. And the idea behind that surgery was to get as much of it out as possible and to send it for biopsy. When the biopsy was done, they found no sign of cancer, and actually that it ended up being all blood, as if I've been hit over the head. I've got one, I had one on this side, a smaller one here, and since then I've had another bleed at the back of my brain. So it turns out that although they said originally tumours, so for weeks I didn't know what it was. For about 5 weeks I was under the assumption this is a tumour, this is what I've been told it's a tumour, and it could or could not be cancerous. So they went right to the margins, took that one out, and then I had another seizure and another bleed at the back of my brain, but they still don't know why I've had them. It's as if I've been hit over the head.
So you have did they go up your nose? Because you have all your hair.
No, well, I had this part here shaved. I had a craniotomy. They shaved and cut my head, and I had a scar about this long. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So they get in there, they get to the edge. Okay, keep going. I'm sorry. I was just fascinated that you had all your hair.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, for me, it's very good on one hand that I don't have. They've identified by top international people. I do not have cancer in there. They were looking for a secondary. They thought that was a secondary cause, secondary sign of cancer, and there was a primary within my body somewhere. They couldn't find anything. But they still don't know why I've had it, and I could still be susceptible. So we're still in a little bit of investigation phase, but I take my wins. I take my win that it's not cancer. Go ahead if you have a question.
Well, I'm going to relate this to. I want to relate this to my own experience, because probably most of the people that have watched the show 72 hours in a row now have heard my story already, so I won't spend a lot of time on that. But I was diagnosed in 2008 with leukemia, and I didn't know much about leukemia at all at the time, right? Probably the same way you felt when you were told you had tumors. You're like, I don't know anything about brain tumors. It just doesn't sound good, right? And I only knew that I had a cousin who had died of a different type of leukemia than I have, and her white blood cell count was about 150,000 at the time she died, and mine was 250,000. So I thought, this is certain death, right? Like, no one told me that, but I lived in for several days until they actually figured out what was going on. And but during that time, I lived for several days with the assumption that I had weeks to live, maybe a month or two at the most. And it has a way to change your perspective on life. And I didn't even fully appreciate that until much further beyond the point you are at, because we're recording this in June. So this is 3 months ago for you, right? Like, it's very recent.
Yeah. So my moment that you're describing there happened in the hospital when this initially happened. When my initial thought was, when I was told I have brain tumors, I don't want this to be my daughter's experience of life to lose a parent. A. B. I have so much still to teach and impart in my children. I don't want that. That for me was a very unpeaceful feeling. So that for me was like, I don't want to be robbed of this time, because I still feel like I don't want my daughters to have that, and I've still got so much to teach and impart on them. So that was my initial kind of feeling of, that doesn't bring me peace. Then when I got taken from the initial room up to a high observation room for the night, I was in there 3 nights in total, 3 or 4 nights. I remember lying there, and it's the first time that I had no family with me, and I was able to close my eyes, and I just thought, okay, I can't change the reality of what I've just been told. That's physical. It is what it is. I can't change the reality. There's no point in me. If I fight it or try and fight it, it's suffering. It is what it is. What I do have in my control is how I interpret, how I want to go about experiencing this. I don't know how long I have to live. I don't know whether I have days, weeks, months. I don't know what the future, but that time, whatever time I do have, I'm definitely going to spend in peace. And the only thing I had within my control was my thinking. And what happened, because I've done a lot of personal development work, growth and development work, just because I love it, and because I've done my coaching qualification, I have a bit of emotional intelligence and understanding to know that your thoughts come to you. You then have a choice of what you do with that thought. And the picture that came to me that was really useful was when I was closing my eyes, is I saw there was like a midnight blue, almost mirror-like stream. And that was all like, it was darkness. It wasn't very nice. And there was a bridge that went down through and under that stream. And I just knew that I could walk on that bridge that goes down and through and be absorbed in Or I could, and it just came to me, I could turn the bridge over. What else could I do? Turn the bridge over. It becomes smooth and cream, and I can walk over that bridge, and I can stand there, and the thought can come, and I can observe the thought, acknowledge it. Does it have a message? Is this useful? No, I'm going to drop it into the stream and just let it go. And for me, that was the start of really mentally processing this in a way, together with thinking, how do I want to experience this? I want to experience this however long I have, with gratitude that I'm still here, because going to the edge of life and thinking I can't breathe takes you to a place that, you know, breath work is just, it takes another level. It's like, this is life sustaining. Breath is the thing that's important. And then the quality of life is the choices that you make. And that starts with your mentality and the thoughts that come to you. And what do you do with that? Do you want to what do you want to do with those thoughts? Are they helpful? Do you want to let them go? Are they telling you something? What do you need to learn from that? Or what do I choose to think instead that then aligns me with how I want to move forward in gratitude and optimism? And those two things for me were my guiding intentions, gratitude and optimism. And I aligned I kept my thoughts in check. The things that people were saying to me, I filtered through gratitude and optimism. Where are they coming from? I don't need to take on what they're thinking. I have my own thoughts. I can choose my own thoughts, even when there's a seed of something else planted. I can, as long as I keep this feedback loop of self-awareness. What am I thinking? What am I feeling right now? What do I want to ingrain in my mind instead that aligns with gratitude and optimism to get me through this in the way that I choose how? Then I'll be okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a lot to process. I mean, to go through that, but you know, it's interesting. Again, another parallel. I remember distinctly, you know, and for me, they're 15 years ago now, but I remember distinctly the first time I was lying in the hospital bed and no one was around, because at first everyone's there, right? You know, you've got, and in my experience, I did something that I don't recommend people do. While I was on the way to the hospital with my father-in-law and my now ex-wife, I was calling people and telling them, I don't know, like I have leukemia, like I don't know anything else. And so all these people that I called started showing up. So that first night, it was just like overwhelming almost how many people were there with me. But then, you know, eventually everyone has to leave. And I remember I sent my wife home, and then I said to myself, okay, I just need to sleep. And I didn't fall asleep right away. And I went through a process that was actually pretty similar to what you're describing. Yeah. I just kept thinking to myself, it's not my fault that I have leukemia, but it is my responsibility. I have to figure out what to do. I have to figure out, how do I do this? And the things that I was worried about, frankly, were taking care of my family. It wasn't me, right? I wasn't scared for myself. I was scared for the other people and how it would affect them. And almost everyone I know that's gone through that feels that same thing. They feel much more worry for children, for spouses, for other family members, friends, and loved ones. And that, because they're the people that after you're gone, they're the ones that have to deal with it. And you're just like, I just don't want that for them. And that's really what you're describing. So I think it's really normal and healthy, actually.
Yeah. And I chose to go about it, for me, slightly differently, just to protect my mental health. I chose to also practice essentialism, to think to myself, to keep me aligned with this gratitude and optimistic outlook and intention and way forward. I only took the information that was essential. So from the person in charge and subsequently my surgeon, even nurses' opinions, even other people's, even if sympathy wasn't helpful, because it's almost like, oh, you poor victim. Empathy is great, sympathy is not. And I just had my family come and visit me when it felt right for me at home, but because I was so focused on staying aligned with gratitude and optimism, knowing that these are the tools that I really, really want to use and to protect my mental health from any possible seed of doubt from anybody else, or even the suggestion of victim, any of that. I didn't allow anybody into my world. When I came home on medication, I just thought, physically, I need to rest. I need to eat well and I need to rest. That's all I need to do physically. Mentally, I need to just give myself the best possible chance for surgery through the physical, but also the mental, of just staying aligned with the optimism and gratitude. being happy and grateful that I'm alive, believing that the treatment would I'd have a great treatment option, and also believing that I will recover well. But I've always faced it with the knowing that whatever reality is what reality is, and if you try and fight it, it's suffering. I don't know if you know of the book Loving What Is by Katie Byron. That book got me through this time. It was one of the books that got me through this time. Highly recommend that. But I really went into protection mode, which is why I went, okay, everyone else away, this is what I need right now.
Yeah, and I think the thing about this stuff is when you're going through something that's hard, I mean, and everyone's going to go through hardship at some point. In fact, we're all going to face our own mortality at some point. And in some ways, I feel fortunate that I got to experience that part of my life, because it's changed how I've looked at my life for the 15 years since then. But I think when you go through hard stuff, there's really no right way to do it. It's what's right for you. Exactly. And like for you said, hey, I need to protect myself. I need to find gratitude and optimism. And I think that's super wise, right? Like protect yourself however you have to. For me, I'm a very social person, and I protected myself by saying I need to assure people that I'm okay, and that they don't need to worry about me. And some of that was hard, right? People would come in and they'd be sad. Like you said, they would say things that irritated you, because they would say things like, like, oh, I'm so sorry you're going through this. And like, it's not fair. This shouldn't be happening to you. And I remember a lot of people projecting their own sorrows onto my situation. There was one guy whose son had recently killed himself. And he came to me and he said, so unfair. People who want to die, like, they die. And then people who don't want to die, they die. And it's like, he was in this weird state because his son had just killed himself, and he's a really good friend of my dad's. But every time I've seen him since, I just see the pain that he experienced in coming to see me, 15 years ago. And, stuff is hard, but at the same time, for me, it was very uplifting in a weird way, because I was like, all these people care about me, and they're here, and they're experiencing this sorrow. And it did feel bad though, because you feel so bad for people, because they come and they see you, and like, Jillian, this is why if I ever get sick again like that, you can't come see me, because I can't handle you having sorrow. So I want everyone to be happy around me,
I already picked out my outfit for your funeral. I'm gonna wear a full veil and
cool. Will you sing the Chattanooga Choo Choo at my funeral?
I will.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Becky's like, these guys are.
It's gonna be really.
Right. So now Becky probably thinks we're the weirdest people ever. So Jillian was a guest on one of my other podcasts. That's how we met. And she sang the Chattanooga Choo Choo on there. So it's like an ongoing joke. Okay. She actually did a terrible job at it too. It was really bad.
It was really bad. I didn't know the words. I forgot the words halfway through the first line. So it was pretty bad. So, which is, by the way, not a great song. It's like a song from like the 40s or 50s, or I think it's probably from the 40s. It's like pre-World War II era.
Well, the worst part is she actually tried to learn it so that she could be on our show. It was like a thing for her. She literally said to me the first time we met, I want to be on your show. And I'm like, we don't have guests. And she's like, I'll sing the Chattanooga Choo Choo. And I was like, okay, fine. You can come on and sing the song.
He told me, hold on, there's no context to that whatsoever. He told me he was from Chattanooga, and I was like, okay, I'll come on and sing the Chattanooga Choo Choo, which I don't even know. Like, it was the first thing that popped into my head. And then I tried to learn it the night before the show. He and myself and like a bunch of other people had been out. We were out to like 11:30 at night, which I'm over 40, so that's way past my bedtime. and we and I ended up trying to practice it at like 11:30 at night for the interview that was the next day. So it was like really just
Mm-hmm.
it was
Sure.
bad way around, but
Yeah.
that's the context. But yes, Jeff, I will sing.
Okay,
as a
so
matter of fact,
we're very much off topic, and I want
yes,
to make sure
we
that
are.
we give
That's
back
right.
our time. So Becky,
Yeah, go ahead.
before I get further distracted, I must know, like, if people want to reach out to you or learn more about your story, where's the best place for them to go for that? Because I usually try to get that in earlier in the show, but I apologize, I forgot to ask. So.
Oh, it's okay. I'm in the process of changing a little bit about my website and a few things I'm doing, because I had intentions to do just coaching, because I was doing my qualification prior to this. I'm my business is called Incorporated Wellness, and I'm in the UK. I'm going to be doing online coaching and doing seminars for organisations, businesses, for groups of people, to help with mental strength and resilience and things like that, just to share my story, and just hopefully it can help other people. And that's kind of my chapter 2 mission, as I call it, but my kind of realisation within this. So my company's called Incorporated Wellness. I'm on Facebook and also LinkedIn as well.
Great.
But like, Becky, before we let you go, tell us like who you're looking to work with, like who. Not all coaches are for all people, right? And not all people are for all coaches.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Jeff and I, we do.
We have very different coaches, though. And we've interviewed both of our coaches on here, so I've had a chance to talk with her coach, and I can tell you she's very different than my coach. And I think Jillian would agree. We had my coach on here as well. And so who do you like to work with?
So really, I love helping people who experience, it's going to sound really funny, who experience quite high levels of stress, and it stands in the way from them really enjoying their life. I love helping people to understand their values, their value systems, and to move past limiting beliefs and things that block them. So on paper, they have everything that you would think that you want to have for a happy life, but actually it's just their mind just stops them, which is why prior to this experience, I knew that's who I wanted to speak to, but when I actually lived it for myself, I was like, wow, this really is so true, that when on paper you just have everything, but your mindset is just stopping you. You know that people who want to look forward to the end of their life and look back and just go, yeah, I made the most of my life, I didn't let anything stand in my way, who have those opportunities.
Are we talking about people who are probably high achievers that
exactly go-getters, high achievers?
They reach some kind of plateau.
Yeah, it's very much self-induced stress through thinking, and actually have the potential to really understand more about themselves and through building better self-awareness, emotional intelligence and agility, to really understand what do they really want, not no longer people pleasing and no longer trying to be good enough, actually realizing you are good enough, but you just need to get back in contact with, like, what do you really want? You have this potential for this amazing life. What do you really want, and how can we get you there to unlock your thinking and really just get you centered back and grounded to your heart, and what do you really want? And
I get that. That's exactly why I ended up getting a coach, was because I was right there. I was high achiever. I was a super high achiever, and I was a people pleaser, and I didn't want anybody to be mad at me, and I wanted everybody to be happy, and I could take care of everything. And there's still a huge part of me where I don't think anybody can take care of things as well as I can take care of things. And I'm usually right, but
I'll actually second that. You usually are right, but you know what? I think Becky, what your target prospective coaching client is essentially like 99.9% of our audience. So that sounds really good, because I was like, oh yeah, that's me. And I knew Jillian would say it's her too, because that's really, that's the thing. We're both former lawyers who were very successful. And then we thought there's got to be more to the world than this. It's not just go work really hard and make some money. That's useful to make money and have resources, but that's a very small part of the experience of life.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Just, and nothing trumps living your life, with pure knowing that you're doing things that bring you joy and ultimately peace. You know, it is. Yeah, I just remember at the very, very beginning of all this for me, lying in that hospital bed and just thinking, you can't. I've missed so many moments. I've missed so many moments where I could have been present and really enjoyed something, but through stressful thinking, I missed it. And I just remember thinking, I do not want to move forward with chapter 2 of my life, missing moments that I could just absorb, take in, and turn into fantastic memories, and ultimately my experience of life. And that's really what I want to help people get out of their own way, and be really kind to yourself and turn it back on you. What do you want? How are you going to how can we create this life for you that you feel satisfied and joyful and peace, and you can overcome anything, and you know who you are and what you really want. And yeah, that's what lights me up. That's the people I love to work with.
This is a woman who has not just the experience, but also the education and the training to back it up. So if you feel like that description Becky just gave fits you, please feel free to reach out to her. Becky, where can people reach out to you? Can they email you? Can they?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. My email address is inquiries at incorporatedwellness.com.
Inquiries at incorporatedwellness.com. And for you Americans out there, it's inquiries with an E, not an I. Okay. Oh. So it's EINQUIRES at incorporatedwellness.com. Thank you so much, Becky, for being with us here today. That was an incredible and inspiring story. I appreciate it so much, and we'll be right back. I screwed that up. Fix it in post.
Go! We are absolutely not fixing that in post. We're leaving
Jeff, someday we're going to have the perfect show and everyone's going to be like, what happened?
Yeah, no, if we had a perfect show, people would be really confused. So that was fantastic.
Oh, so wonderful.
I could have talked to her for 2 more hours, to be honest.
I read Becky's bio 3 times before we came on, and I was still stuttering because I could not believe that I thought it was a typo. I thought it had to be 2021 or something, right? Because it said in the bio she started the coaching program or whatever, the training in 2021. And I was like, okay. And then I'm like 2023. I'm like, those dates have to be reversed. There's no possible way. But yeah, you know what? I listen, I really feel for that situation because I get it. And one thing I always say to people is I wouldn't wish life-threatening illnesses, disease, trauma on anyone, but I also wouldn't ever wish it away in my life because it made my life so much richer and so much better. And I think that's what Becky's experiencing right now, right? I mean, I don't want to speak for her, but it feels like what she's experiencing is she's seeing life from a different perspective, and she's going to hold on to that because she's talking about it. And a lot of people never get that chance. And that's actually why I wanted to start Last Life Ever in the first place, right? That's literally the reason I wrote my book. It's the reason I started the podcast with you, is because I wanted people to not have to go through life-threatening illnesses or trauma. And that's why some of my favorite guests are people that have gone through really hard things. Yeah, and the thing that's so hard to realize, especially for somebody like me who did, I went through trauma that was non-medical, but it was, betrayal and I wouldn't even say financial hardship, but just betrayal and stress. And that whole situation, I still get angry about it. I wouldn't lie and say that I'm totally over it. I'm very angry at some humans for that whole situation. But I recognize that had I not gone through that stress, I would not have made the major life-changing changes in my life. I would have stood in the same place being my miserable self. And I said for years before that trauma even happened, I said for probably 2.5, 3 years before it happened, this is not sustainable. I am not sustainable. My situation is not sustainable. And it was almost like the trauma had to force me out of that unsustainable situation into something better for me. So yeah, and it also I ended up getting rid of a ton of people who were just leeches on my life, and yeah, I don't miss them. Like,
yeah. Well, listen, we have to wrap up here, Jillian, because we're already 5 minutes over. But I will say this: I would refer people back to the episode we did with Jeff Alt, the guy who wrote the book about hiking the Appalachian Trail. I think it was Walk for Sunshine, right? Was the name of the book?
Yep, that's the book. And I have it.
Yeah. So Jeff Alt said in that show, you can't bank on your health. And I think that's a good thing to remember. Like, we just don't know how much time we're going to have. So we got to live the best version of our last life ever.
Bye, everyone. Have a good one.